topic. Are you codependent? Let's find out. These are the following symptoms: self-sacrificing, reactivity, poor boundaries, low self-esteem, problems with intimacy and emotional regulation.
Do we label ourselves as codependent? We like to feel special, don't we? Yes, we all do. And as a foundation, there is nothing wrong with that. There's a very specific reason why we use expressions like the one, my better half, or the apple of my eye, just to say a few. We desire the right, a special connection, a perfect person who will understand us without words, who will stand for everything that we represent and loves us with all our missing pieces and faults. We just want to be accepted, just as we are. But things get very tricky when we start to live, thrive, speak, dress, and experience life for our soulmate only, hoping that one day we get back all the love and the attention that we give out to them constantly. Codependency is a deeply misused and misunderstood word, which also delays the realization process as well. But the word dependency is not the enemy here. Once we chose a partner, a friend, a job, or a lifestyle, there is no question about whether dependency exists or not. It always does, in every type of relationship you have. The problem starts when you exploit yourself for acceptance, repeat cycles that leave you feeling lost in your own persona, and you actively try to hide behind someone else's life or needs. And you don't even realize that the style and the dynamics of connection you learned from your childhood are actually blueprints that you try to recreate to make sense of it all. In the last half year, with a lot of self-work and therapy, I started to realize that most of my deep-rooted fears, the tone of my inside voice, ideas and intense emotions didn't even come from me. My over-controlling habits, my hurtful coping mechanisms weren't a quirky trait I should be proud of. They were there to distract me from the fact that I actually don't know who I am. I don't follow my needs and the whispers of my heart. I constantly analyze and react to situations based on the values I learned, even if it conflicts with my own. I always thought I had a problem with connecting to people, when in reality I just had a problem with connecting to myself. So what is codependency, really? The root of codependency traces back to when Dr. Benjamin Rush first described habitual drunkenness as a disease. It evolved from the field in the treatment of families of alcoholics. Originally, they used it for people who grew up next to a caretaker who was deeply dependent on them due to their alcoholism or addiction. But in 1989, experts at National Conference on Codependency arrived at a consensual definition: a pattern of painful dependency on compulsive behaviors and on approval from others in an attempt to find safety, self-worth, and identity. Codependents have been described as having a lost self, a loss of one's inner reality and an addiction to outer reality. A person who cannot function without organizing their thinking around a substance, a process, or a person. The disorder exists in them whether they are in a relationship or not. They become dependent on other people in unhealthy ways, even though they might just do fine on their own. The degree of codependency also varies on a spectrum. Some experts consider codependency as a disease or an addiction, because like alcoholism, the behavior is compulsive and worsens over time if left untreated. Since then, they now realize that people with emotionally unavailable, narcissistic or codependent caretakers who don't try or just unable to mirror the child's reactions and needs tend to turn out codependent. So all the relationships, job environments, life choices and friendships are just a byproduct of the original connection that you had between yourself and the caretaker. If from that you learn to mute your feelings and your needs and generally yourself, you will forever try to love others in the same way as you know how.
That's the stupidest question I've ever heard.
We try to escape from the truth in art, but interestingly, we repeatedly choose media that represents our inner fights. It's a form of escapism, a process of self-repair that tries to heal our distressed psyche. We sometimes proactively look for a film or a book that closely reflects our situations, so that we can figure out how to overcome them in real life. When the plot begins to resonate with what we've been trying to escape, we try to look away, but still, we stay. because we hope that the protagonist wins. If they can succeed in their own world, maybe we can also win in our parallel universes of reality. Just think of all the cartoons, TV shows, and myths that beautifully show the signs of codependency. Sacrificing our needs and wants in order to be loved, get lost in the other person's persona, low self-worth and self-doubt, trying to fix the other person in hope that it would fix us, idealization of people, unable to live due to the feeling of being lost without a connection like that. People like this usually get into unhealthy and toxic, a lot of the time narcissistic relationships. You can see it in Breaking Bad, Tangled, Midsommar, or even in Rick and Morty.
Oh dear God, no. They're codependent! Run!
But if we wanted to see it in an older story, we could read all about Demeter and her shadow complex in Greek mythology. But why these people get into narcissistic relationships?
This is just the beginning.
Because the codependent cannot fulfill their own need, which is to satisfy their loved one. The reason why codependency is overlooked because, first of all, we overuse it, and second of all, we only tend to analyze it through romantic relationships, rather than understanding it as a coping mechanism.
You're all the most codependent, incestuous, controlling group of people I've ever met!
We may neglect to notice the toxic footprint a dysfunctional family martyr left in us. Therefore, we become very easily manipulated because we feel the obligation to help everyone, always, without boundaries. So many of these signs I realized later in life, most of them only this year. Since I was a kid, the fact that there's a lot of ambivalency in my personality and in my emotional regulation was clear to me, but I couldn't understand why. I had a long journey coming to terms with the topic that an unhealthy parent and child connection can actively shape your everyday life and all your decisions in it. I grew up having very poor boundaries and a chameleon-like behavior. Because I didn't know it wasn't normal, many challenges I faced emerged from the simple matter that without a strong rulebook from an idolized person, I didn't know who I was. I dressed, spoke, acted in a certain way that was accepted, making it into my whole personality, even though deep down I knew that it was just not me. Funnily enough, the biggest scolding I got from my childhood was, "This isn't you," if I tried to get out of the pre-selected path or explore my own needs. Therefore, I had a hard time buying things alone, making decisions alone. I had a difficult time knowing what I like or I don't like. I felt bad about keeping secrets or having different opinions. I always felt obligated to fix everyone else's problems or emotional needs. I ran after intimacy but feared it, so in the end I only chose emotionally unavailable people. I was scared to leave relationships because I always molded myself to fit the person perfectly. And I ran away from friendships and projects, but I realized I should make some boundaries now. And my all-time favorite, even without me knowing, I always shaped my all-time dream based on the person I got together with. So, all of this and a little bit more is what got me to this point. I want to escape being codependent. First of all, I love to be alone, but I didn't know before starting this journey how deeply terrified I am to go to new places on purpose without a goal. It is very uncomfortable when you don't trust your own decision-making and protecting skills, so I knew I had to start there. As a first step, I started to go to a nearby cafe every other day for a few hours or just on a long walk alone, cutting out social media, but most specifically Reels, as much as I can, and trying to learn how to be alone with my thoughts. It was insanely hard at first, which wasn't only because of today's topic, but because I had to face the fact that social media platforms got me addicted to constant sounds and emotional input. For this reason, insomnia also crept in at this time, because suddenly I had the weight of silence on my chest, provoking my problems to resurface every night. This experience led me to understand the importance of a good daily routine and the fact that I really need to learn how to be consistent with myself, even when living with a partner, friends, or family members. There's a way, a route that's best for me, and it's okay. It's okay to choose that. The second step was a trip to the other side of the city, this time to an aquarium. There was intense rain that whole week, which almost made me rethink this idea of mine.
And it's raining so much.
It took me some inner fighting to convince myself not to wait for everything to be perfect for this trip, even if it's just about the weather. You can either fight against the circumstances or you can adapt, think through, let go of control when there is none. The most important challenge so far was the third step, the thing that made me want to write about this whole process, and from now on I want to implement it in my life in any existable form. is a solo trip. Before this, I didn't utterly understand this deep-rooted, paralyzing fear in me about traveling alone. Of course, a lot of it came from the things you hear on the news, from your parents, the crime rates you see everywhere, and naturally from the intense dread that comes with traveling as a woman alone. But there was a frightened, childlike voice in me that was just simply scared that I'm unable to do this alone. That I'm not strong enough to be with myself for a longer period of time without anyone to talk to or follow. I'm a very resourceful person who worked hard as a teen and a kid to achieve things and positions, but still, I always had a teacher or a parent who set the rules. On a solo trip, you are the parent. You have to take care of yourself and you have to be with yourself. And I think that scared me more than I admitted to myself. And this is exactly why I had to do it. I had to know what parts of me I kept in the dark because I felt the world might not accept it, or maybe I would not accept it. Before anything, I want to say that at the time of the solo trip, I did not have a microphone, so the sound quality is not the best, but it comes from my heart, so yeah, here you go, enjoy.
I feel like what's important for me right now, and this, I'm just saying, like, it might not work for everyone. For me, I really started to realize that I work as a sponge, and if I'm in an environment, I take in everything. And this can be a good thing in a lot of different ways, but this is also something I have to learn in order to create healthy relationships, because this is my fault in a lot of situations that I don't know where do I start and where the environment starts. I don't have a clear line around myself. And it's, you know, the first step is to get to know yourself, because if you don't know who you are, how could you understand where the line starts and where the line ends?
Sorry, really sorry, it's me again. Before I finish this part of the video, I actually found a book today, Codependent No More, in a bookshop, and there's part of it I really liked, and I really feel like it's fitting, and I want to read it to you, if that's okay. Okay? Okay? Better. What is the one thing that codependents do over and over again? What is it that keeps us feeling so bad? Codependents are caretakers, rescuers. They rescue, then they persecute, then they end up victimized. Study the Karpman drama triangle and the accompanying roles of the rescuer, persecutor, and victim. This was it. This is our pattern. This is what we repeatedly do with friends, family, acquaintances, clients, or anybody around us. As codependents, we may do many things, but this pattern is what we do the best and most often. This is our favorite reaction. We are the rescuers, the enablers. We are the great godmothers or godfathers of the entire world, as Ernie Larson says. We not only meet people's needs, we anticipate them. We fix, nurture, and fuss over others. We make better, solve, and attend to. And we do it all so well. Your wish is my command. It's our team. Your problem is my problem. It's our motto. We are the caretakers. Rescuing and caretaking mean almost what they sound like. We rescue people from their responsibilities. We take care of people's responsibilities for them. Later, we get mad at them for what we've done. Then we feel used and sorry for ourselves. This is the pattern. This is the triangle. We love to say, you can't love others until you love yourself. But for someone with codependent traits, even loving is split into an either or. Others or me. But as a basic capacity, love cannot be divided. The ability to love self and others arises as a whole. Partitioning it into self and other undermines it altogether. The self pole turning into selfish and the other pole into infantilizing. This is the biggest aftermath we face when we start to understand ourselves in these patterns. We have to rewire our brain and learn a new way to love, but the self and the others at the same time. We need to understand that there needs to be a healthy line between us and the world, so it doesn't swallow us in the whole, and there needs to be a clear feeling of who we are, because that's where the boundaries can be set. As I'm getting to the end of writing this specific script, I also have to face the fact that this is just the beginning. Learning your own needs, listening to your inner voice, and getting to know yourself is constant work, just like a workout. And like in that case, we need to take other factors into account.
When you are aiming to build a healthy physique and mind, it's not just about the muscle work. If you don't eat right, drink enough, meditate or journal, and you watch and experience everything without your own filter,
you simply become a product of your own environment. This topic is too big to discuss it in one video, especially when there is a huge dependence on society as a whole. We constantly crave validation and structure from big companies, celebrities, and even religion to show us the right way to live, which becomes another key indicator on who we become. The ability to only interact and seek things that resonate with the individual us is a much harder step that the world of capitalism just isn't supportive of. In the upcoming video, we will explore the next layer of dependency. If you want to be a part of this journey or just want to hear about topics like this in the future, subscribe or like the video, and hopefully see you next time.